4, 3, 2, and 1.
Good evening. Welcome to the Joint City Council in Brisbane, Guadalupe Valley Municipal Improvement District Financing Authority meeting of April 20th, 2023. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Oh, wait, report out from closed session. Oh, wait, which one do you want first?
Let's do a roll call first.
Okay.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Here.
Councilmember Lenz.
Here.
Councilmember Mackin.
Here.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Here.
And Mayor Davis.
Here. Okay, report out from closed session.
Yes, Madam Mayor, the council met in closed session to consider a claim. The staff was given direction and will follow up on the claim. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Can I get a first and second to adopt the agenda as it stands?
Madam Mayor, I would make that motion, but I would like to close our meeting in memory of Anita Collar. She's a longtime Brisbane resident, over 50 years, passed away recently at 95 years old, was married to Carl Collar. And secondly, I would also like to close, because we're going to miss it between our meetings. I would like to recognize our city clerk, Ingrid Padilla, and also our deputy clerk, Angel Ibarra, who should be recognized because we have Municipal Clerks Week coming up April 30th to May 3rd. They're very important to us in the city, the things they do behind the scenes. It would turn your hair gray, and they make these meetings look easy, and you have no idea how stressful that is before the meetings, and they make it look seamless. So I think they deserve recognition and our gratitude.
Perfect. Anyone else have
That was
any
nice.
adjustments to the agenda?
So moved.
Okay.
Did you need a second?
Or did you?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. You're the second? Okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
that's-
Karen. Roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Councilmember Lenz.
Aye.
Councilmember Mackin.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
And Mayor Davis.
Aye. Now we move on to oral communications number 1. This is for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone wishing to speak?
Madam Mayor, there are no members of the public that wish to speak.
Okay, so we will move on to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve items B through F?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Lenz.
Aye.
Councilmember Mackin.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
And Mayor Davis.
Aye. Now moving on to item G, which is continuing the public hearing regarding a water and sewer rate increase. This was continued from the meeting of April 6, 2023. And I know staff has a brief staff report based on questions that were asked at the last meeting, so I'll turn it over to Carolina.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Just would like to provide a brief introduction for tonight's continued public hearing, and we'll turn over to our rate study consultants who will follow up with a short slide presentation. At the last council meeting, the public hearing was open to discuss the proposed water and sewer rate increases as directed by council at the December 15th council meeting. So the purpose for the changes and increases are to address the position the utility fund is currently experiencing, where the fees collected are no longer sufficient to cover its operating costs, to restructure our rate tables to facilitate the majority of fixed costs to be covered by fixed fees as opposed to variable usage, to revise the rate structure to ensure no group is subsidizing the usage of another group, to return to a position where we are in compliance with our current debt coverage requirement, to replenish our reserves to the industry standard of 25% of operating expenses, And by implementing these changes, the expectation is that we can resume our credit rating, which was recently lowered to single A because our rates aren't supporting our costs. So we can no longer delay implementing rate increases. So again, our recommendation is for council to adopt the resolution presented in our staff report. And we recommend the rate increases go into effect June 15, 2023. So now I'd like to turn it over to Catherine Seng from Lahovich and Seng.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, council members. I have an abbreviated presentation from my prior presentation, but I can also, of course, answer any questions if there's, additional questions once my presentation is complete. Okay. So tonight, we are considering the rate increases for the three charges in the red box. So on the bi-monthly utility bill, there's 5 charges. Tonight, we are looking at the water use charge, the water service charge, and the sewer charge. And these are the charges that pay for the operating and maintenance expenses for the water and sewer utilities. Those include staffing, utilities, equipment, water purchases, and sewer treatment, as well as funding reserves. And these operational rates have not been increased since 2012. We'll start with the water utility. As of July 1st, 2022, the water fund had reserves of about $2.8 million. And as you'll see in the water budget, this includes a history of water revenues and of water expenses. So from the past 4 years, the water fund has been doing pretty well. We've been covering your costs, but it's estimated beginning that, for this fiscal year, at the end of this fiscal year, that the water fund will be operating in a deficit, and that deficit has to come out of your reserve fund. So without rate increases, it's projected that this deficit will continue to grow in future years. So this slide includes the current bi-monthly water rates. So as you'll see, there's a lot of rates here. Currently, customers are charged based on their meter size, but the charges vary based on your customer class. So the fixed charge is the charge that all customers are charged regardless of any consumption. So that's the minimum charge that everyone pays just to be hooked up to the system. The second component is the consumption charges, and that also varies based on based on customer class as well as meter size. The consumption charges are based on your actual usage. So the more water you use, the higher rate there is. So currently for a residential customer who typically has a 5/8" meter, there's 7 tiers. Our goal in this rate study was to simplify the rate structure and better align the charges with the actual costs. So here are our proposed bi-monthly water rates. As you see, we simplified the rate structure so that all customers, residential and commercial, will be charged the same rates. We still have that fixed charge, which varies based on your meter size. So for instance, like a 2-inch meter is charged more because they have 5 times the capacity of a 5/8" or 3/4" meter, which is the city's base meter. For the consumption charges, we've consolidated the tiers so that now we have a 2-tiered rate structure. That first tier is from 1 to 2,000 cubic feet. We are including 1 unit of water, that 100 cubic feet, in your fixed charge. So tier 1 is 1 to 2,000 cubic feet, and tier 2 is for use over that 2,000 cubic feet. And that tier was set based on average usage. So the average use for a single family home is 1,000 cubic feet per bi-monthly period. Next slide. Again, this summarizes what we did with the rate structure. There's just one single structure based on meter size that applies to all customers. In addition, all customers will receive 1 unit of water with their fixed charges. Currently, only customers with a 5/8" meter receive that 1 unit of water with their fixed charge. And with the consumption charges, we consolidated the tiers into the 2 tiers for all customers. To help graphically explain how much water we're talking about, 1 unit of water is 100 cubic feet, which is equivalent to 748 gallons. So the graphic above shows what 1 cubic foot of water is. So that's equal to 7.48 gallons of water. So 100 cubic feet would be 748 of those jugs, or 5,665 bottles of water. Here, we graphically show what the current revenues are for the water fund, currently this city collects about 3 million in water sales revenue. As you'll see in the chart, that's insufficient to cover operating expenses going forward over the next 5 years. The blue portion of the chart represents water purchases, which is the largest operating expense for the water fund. That is based off of your water purchase from the SFPUC, which has increased over 67% since 2012. And that's to help fund over $4 billion project to upgrade the Hetch Hetchy project. So all customers that purchase water from the SFPUC have experienced the same rate increases. This chart shows what the proposed average bill would be for a single family customer with a 5/8" meter who uses that 1,000 cubic feet every 2 months. Currently, that total bill, which also includes the capital project charge and drought contingency charge, is $120.17. The proposed bill for June 15th is $127.37. Okay, we'll go with the sewer unless there's any questions. Okay. So sewer, as of July 1st, 2022, estimated reserves is about 3.6 million. But as you see, since about 2018-19, the sewer fund has not been covering its costs. It's been operating in a deficit for the past 5 years, and it's estimated at the end of this fiscal year, the deficit will be about 1.6 million. So that'll reduce your fund reserves to $2 million. And it'll continue to draw down your reserves if we don't increase rates. So here's your current bi-monthly sewer rates. Residential customers, residential and commercial customers are all charged the same flat charge. And there's also a variable charge based on consumption, but that is tiered. And it's tiered, the tiered rates vary based on your customer class. So what we're proposing to do is eliminate that tiered rate for the variable charge because tiered rates really aren't applicable to sewer use. Tiered rates are used for conservation. And for sewer, we already take the winter consumption for residential use, which is the 4-month period between October and November, December, and January. And that's when use is already pretty low. So it's asking someone to conserve for the sewer during those months it's impossible. It's really hard to ask people to conserve. So therefore, we're proposing to eliminate that tiered rate structure. And this summarizes our changes to flat charges. There's no change. All customers will continue to pay that flat charge. And for the variable charge, we'll eliminate those tiered rates. Here we show what the projected operating expenses are for the sewer fund for the next 5 years. Currently, sewer service charge revenues are 2 million, and they're insufficient to cover your operating costs currently. The green portion is the treatment costs from the SFPUC, which is the largest expense for the sewer fund. Those rates have increased over 140%, and that's to fund a treatment plant upgrade. Here is the proposed sewer bill for that average customer that uses 1,000 cubic feet every 2 months. Currently, the sewer bill, which also includes the capital project charge, is $141.60. The proposed bill for June 15th is $182.10, and that does include the capital project charge. So here is the proposed combined bi-monthly bill. So this chart includes all 5 charges, which are shown on that first slide. Currently, for that average residential customer, your total bill is $261.84. Based on the June 15, 2023 rates, that bill is going to go up to $309.47. And it's projected to increase to $534.20 in 2027. So this is a survey of a combined bill that includes water, sewer, and additional other charges. This compares the current rate of $261.84 with our proposed June 15th bill of $309 with surrounding agencies. And I just wanted to point out that some of these cities are served by multiple like water companies or sanitation districts. So therefore, the rates could differ depending on where someone lives in a specific city. So I just wanted to footnote where we got our rates from. So the city offers a low income rate discount, or LIRA. This discount is funded from the general fund. Currently, I believe the contribution is about $40,000. The current number of LIRA customers is 102. So what we're proposing to do is just set a percent discount off the total utility bill, as opposed to a different percentage off of the actual line item. We propose to take a 25% discount off the complete total utility bill. And that chart below shows what the estimated general fund transfer would be with that 25% discount. What we assumed what the current customer count, and we used their current usage to estimate what the cost would be going forward for the next 5 years. Based on the June 15, 2023 rates, that estimated general fund transfer is about $42,000. But by 2027, 28, that transfers about $73,000. But that also assumes that we stay level at that 102 customers. So more customers may sign on. And I just want to point out that the city can choose to set that low income rate discount, whatever the city chooses, because under Prop 218, you cannot use rate revenues to pay for this discount. So the city is using its own separate source of revenue from the general fund to fund the discount. So it's at the city's discretion as to what they would like to set. Okay, and that's all.
Are there any council questions? Oh, okay.
Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Singh. Could you please just, for anyone watching at home, if they didn't see the last meeting where we went over this, explain why it's important that we move forward to catch up where we're not subsidizing what we're not receiving in revenues? Why is that important? Its relationship with our borrowing capacity.
So because the city is not currently covering its operating costs, it's made it difficult for the city to borrow money. Your credit rating has been lowered, which makes it difficult for you to go out for bonds. And that's what you need to help fund your capital projects. So if you don't cover your costs, if you don't meet, there's certain requirements, like you have to meet a debt service coverage, you have to cover, it's operating expenses. If you don't meet that, your credit rating could also be lowered and make it difficult for you to borrow money.
And for anyone that doesn't understand what capital projects are, those are replacement of water lines, sewer lines that
Yes.
break,
Yes.
regular aging pipes that
Yes.
literally we need to be proactive to do
Yes.
something about it.
Yes, that require, replacement. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have some questions.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, I got two areas I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
So, but since you have the low income rate assistance plan here, we'll go with that
Okay.
one. So thank you for providing, Carolina, the data. So, on page 4, the bottom paragraph, it says the city has spent approximately $40,000 each year. So is that the amount of money that we have spent, or is that budgeted? And if you could just kind of provide some clarification there, please.
That is the amount that was actually used by the participants, and the budget was higher, and it varied over several years that we were looking at. The most recent budgeted amount was $75,000,
75,000.
but not all. Again, wasn't all used because it's based off of the participants and their usage.
Got it. Okay, so in the past, the council then has put the $75,000, at least that's in the last budget, to cover these costs, but the need wasn't that great. It was only at the 40,000 or so
Right.
rate.
Right.
Okay.
It ranged. So
It ranged, yeah. And then, so, on the next page, on page 5, I appreciate you having the tables here and trying to get an understanding of what that income increase to a low income household would be. So currently, the current bill is 1.8% of someone's income. The new rate increase would be 2.4% of their income, but that's just for when we implement the new rates sometime in 2023. So, but we know that the costs are more expensive as we move into the later years, and 2027 is significantly higher than 2023 is going to be. So, and I apologize for not reaching out to you earlier to kind of, just get an understanding of what that percentage might look like in 2027 for that low income household. Do you have any idea, Carolina?
I mean, we would have to, with the same assumptions, it is hard to say other than yes, it would be increasing, and, the different water charge increases versus a sewer, which is a little more steep. But we're happy to come back or provide that information separately.
Okay, so the city could put forth these rate increases, and then, but the city, council can separately say, hey, we want to make sure that these low income households are not getting more of a hit than regular, folks that aren't on, say, a fixed income. Okay, so what you're recommending is just a recommendation to the council, but it's not part of the rates that would go into effect.
We're recommending just to start at the 25% because that will be comparable to where we are now. And because the discount is actually coming from the general fund, then we can discuss it when the general fund is being reviewed.
Okay, that makes sense. So thank you for providing that information. And then the other thing was, and thank you, Clay, for providing, that information in regards to, where the revenue came from, those one-time revenues, to help subsidize, the rates that we charge folks. So in 2018, that was significant. That was like $2 million. But then the years, after that, it decreased, and 2021 was very low, right?
Mhm.
You're looking at, say, $36,000 compared to $2 million just 3 years prior. It went up in 2022. So in 2018, where did the majority of that money come from?
Majority came from the connections that happened at the Sierra Point
Okay.
build outs.
And was it a particular project, or is it just, can you provide that information?
I don't recall the timing, to be honest, but I know that there were like the 5 building projects.
As one of
Yeah.
the two, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so so right now, right, we have the phase 3 project, and moving forward, are there connection fees in these totals?
Not in, some of them may be in the smaller, like even the 2019 may have some. But from my understanding, we're still expecting the collection of future connections.
Okay, all right. So, of course, it's not going to be as big as,
The 5
the
buildings, yeah.
multi-campus, multi-building campus that was built, but there should be a significant, bump in that. Okay. All right, thank you very much. That's it.
Okay, anyone else?
So do we need to formally reopen the public hearing?
Yes, I believe we do. So I'll now reopen the public hearing. And I will give an opportunity for any member of the public to speak at this time. Ingrid, do you have anyone who wishes to make a comment?
I have not received any written correspondence, and I don't see any attendees at this moment.
Okay, can I get a first and a second to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Cunningham,
Aye.
Councilmember Lentz,
Aye.
Councilmember Mackin,
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell,
Aye.
and Mayor Davis.
Aye. So now's the time for a council discussion. Does somebody want to start?
So I have one question maybe that can be answered. The one-time sewer connection fees that we get from development, those go into our general fund. And then that we've been subsidizing the sewer and water rates with.
No, they go into the enterprise fund, the water and sewer, so they stay there.
They stay there.
Yeah, they stay
Okay.
there and are become part of the fund reserve,
Okay,
and which were being used over.
but we've been using those to pay for general services. And so that affects our debt service limit.
Services
we are-
from the enterprise
Right,
operations.
on the enterprise section.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up with a question on your question, Terry. So, we have this development that's occurring right now. There'll be revenue for the connection fees from that. Of course, we don't have a crystal ball on any other development out at Sierra Point. So development that is currently happening and development that may happen out at Sierra Point, that was not figured into the calculations in regards to the reserve balance, correct? Okay. Thanks.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Before you do, I'd like to say a couple things if I may.
I made two.
Okay.
So this has been an agonizing process. Many hours with our very patient consultant, many hours Councilmember Lentz and I asked questions, poured through charts. And it's caused many sleepless nights for me as well, because I keep trying to think of other solutions. So I've had people contact me. Questions I have, I don't know if the public still would try to call in, but we talked also about the problem we have bi-monthly billing. Some people see it as a problem, some don't. We asked about monthly billing, and the difficulty we have is our meters right now and the software that we use for billing need to be replaced. And then we could potentially look at monthly billing, but we can't do that now. At least that way you could kind of more pay as you go monthly, but that's something for the future. And the other is some people will say, well, we've got all these capital improvements. Can't we just kind of hold off on some of that? And because we're getting hit with all this rate increase. And I immediately started thinking about PG&E and how angry everyone got when, because of lack of dealing with infrastructure, the power goes out for days, and how we would feel if we went for days without water or sewer problems. And some of our citizens have had to deal with that kind of interruption of service. So that's the hazard of putting off keeping the system in good order. And when we get those connection fees, and we defray part of the cost, it causes another problem, which is that when you use up those fees, guess what? Suddenly your bill's higher and you don't know why. Well, it's because there's no more money left from connection fees. So there's a hazard with that as well. It's almost better where you pay as you go and you know what the rate is. And then when it increases, we've built in very small increases into these rates, so that when the next increase comes from San Francisco, it's not a massive, oh my God, we have to catch up. And in putting something in perspective, I don't know if this is helpful. In terms of everyone's survival, you have the roof over your head, right? Your family, you want a roof over your head. That's number one. You need food on the table to survive, right? Number two, well, you can't survive just with food. You've got to have water. So those three are paramount. And I could say, don't have the roof over my head. Maybe we're in an emergency or an earthquake, but you've got to have food and water. And how many days do you want to go without being able to use a restroom? So when we talk about water and sewer rates, these are basic, very important survival items that are that important that we can't play with, well, it's too much money or we can't afford it. You can't afford to do without it. I certainly don't want to. And one of the difficulties is we are dependent on San Francisco, and they don't call us 2 years in advance and say, we're going to raise rates a bunch because we have all these plans. It just kind of comes down the pike and they say, you've got a rate increase, and we don't have a lot of choice. What we do have a choice, we definitely have a choice, is how we proceed in the future. But what we need everyone to be patient with is it's going to take some time. Maybe in the future, we can do sewer treatment. We can find a way to handle our waste as Brisbane and not have to ship it someplace else. But that's an economy of scale, and also investigating the amount of money it takes to build a facility. The technology is changing, maybe making it way more feasible to do that, just as little tiny Brisbane. But you can't do that overnight. So right now, we kind of have to bite the bullet and say, roof over the head, water, we need food, and we need that sewer. So we've just got to come to terms with it. And nobody likes it, but it's the most important things in your life to survive. That's just what it is. Everything else is secondary. So that's how I try to look at it and say, okay, that's what we have to do right now. The future is something else. Let's plan ahead. And I will assure you, as a council, as Public Works, as our staff, as infrastructure committee, we are looking into other options for the future, but it can't happen overnight. So thank you for your patience. We're all going to feel some pain for a while.
Thank you. I believe Councilmember Cunningham would like to go next.
Just really quickly, a comment. I know this is really painful, and I'm sad to say we probably should not have waited this long to change the rates. It's a very uncomfortable position for any council to be in, to have to raise these rates on a regular basis. But moving forward, we definitely need to assess things more often than, oh, it's not going to be popular, so, let's just kick this can down the road. We can't do that anymore. But with the future technologies that are coming down the pipe very, very fast, we may be able to adapt. As Councilmember Mackin said, some of these new technologies, we're talking about waste treatment and what that looks like. And there's all these new companies that are bringing things out hard and fast. And hopefully that's going to change the way things happen in the future and change the cost structure for us to be a cheaper way of doing things. Yes, we're kind of stuck with San Francisco. There was one other option, but that option ended up being approximately the same cost, Carolina, correct? There were one other place we could have gotten our water from, and it was the same cost. So there wasn't any benefit for us to move. So biting the bullet and making faster decisions moving forward. Sorry to have to do this, but it is what it is. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, so I agree with both of you, right? I mean, we have to do what we have to do because it's our responsibility to make sure that we provide safe water and responsible sewage treatment. Yeah, so the main thing for me though in what we're dealing with here, is the hit to people. And yeah, Colin, you and I, we went through it a lot, and that was, really, I think the driving force of trying to find alternative ways of not having the impact be so hard on people. But in the end, it is what it is. However, we as a council have been able to provide assistance. We've taken money out of our general fund to aid low-income families. We do have this percentage right now, and I think it's appropriate to agree to that today. But I would like for us as a council, when we go over the budget, to get more information from Carolina and see, okay, could we provide a greater increase to lower income folks? Because when you look at the data, right, 2.4% of your income goes to sewer and water. That's a big chunk. right? And maybe for, a lot of people live in Brisbane, 2.4% might not seem so much, but we know that those percentages are going to go up. And so, yeah, if we can, address that when the time comes, I'd like to do that. And then, looking at those connection fees, eventually we're going to, well, I shouldn't say eventually, there's a good possibility that there will be other development out at Zero Point of some capacity, and that will bring in revenues. But that, of course, isn't, something that we can hang our hat on. And like you said, Karen, kind of kick the can down the road. We have to deal with it now. And these rate increases are prudent. But there could be a possibility down the line where the revenues have increased because of development. And that might be a conversation for us later on down the line. It could be 5 or 6 years down the line, and where those reserves are stronger, and maybe rate increases won't be as significant and as steep as they are today. But of course, these rate increases are going to be tough for everybody, right? But they're fair too, because when you look at them, it's all across the board, and that's the way that it should be. Everyone should contribute in a fair manner. So.
So I'd just like to say that, to the idea of development funding certain costs later, we can only do a rate study for 5 years due to state law. And in 5 years, we will have to revisit this topic. And whether it's to maintain the rates as they are, increase the rates, it's going to depend on what the economic climate is and the cost of doing business is. So, in 5 years, we will revisit this. And until then, we have to just rely on the statistics and what it shows and what's really there. But I would not want to make this city beholden on development to provide clean water and sewer. And I wouldn't want to say we're over a barrel and need to have development just to provide basic services to the residents that are here, because I don't think that's what our residents would want either.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna, echo what many of you have said, but this has been an incredibly exhaustive effort. I hope after the many meetings that we've had, that the public understands that these numbers weren't pulled out of thin air. And we can't operate at a deficit. It's never a fiscal policy that works. And our responsibility is to make the best financial decisions for the city. That is what we're charged with doing. And that is, that's our responsibility. And so we would not be upholding our oaths of office, in my opinion, to do what's in the best interest of the city if we did not move forward with these water and sewer rates, as painful as it is for everyone. Ultimately, the costs of pretty much everything are going up, and that truly is the world that we live in right now. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to increase the charges for water and sewer services and setting the discount rate for the city's low income rate assistance plan at 25% for all services.
I would make that motion to adopt the resolution.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Cunningham,
Aye.
Councilmember Lentz,
Aye.
Councilmember Mackin,
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell,
Aye.
and Mayor Davis.
Aye. Now we'll move on to new business, item H. Consider introduction of an ordinance conforming sewer service and water service charges to charges approved by the City Council on April 20th, 2023. Staff report.
Yes. Thank you, council members. On the prior agenda item, council adopted a resolution establishing revised sewer service and water service charges for the next 5 years. Staff is therefore recommending council now introduce an ordinance conforming provisions in the Brisbane Municipal Code to the charges council approved in the resolution. Specifically, these changes include an annual 9% increase to the fixed water charge through fiscal year 27-28, an annual increase of 7% to the water usage rate charge through fiscal year 2027 to 2028, a 25% annual increase in the sewer service charges through 2027-2028 fiscal year, and finally setting the discount rate for the city's low-income rate assistance plan at 25% for all services. Under the ordinance, council may by resolution reduce or cancel the rate increase for any particular year without jeopardizing the approved rate increase for the following year. Council may by resolution also amend the city's low-income assistance rate. The ordinance, if introduced this evening, will have a second reading on May 4th, but the charges will not go into effect until June 15, 2023, consistent with the effective date of the new charges set forth in the resolution. I'll be glad to answer any questions that council has.
Council questions? Does anyone want to make a motion?
I want to note for the record, Madam Mayor, there's no public comment.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to introduce an ordinance conforming sewer service and water service charges to charges approved by the city council on
I'll
April
second.
20th, 23.
Sorry, I'll second that.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Cunningham,
Aye.
Councilmember Lentz,
Aye.
Councilmember Mackin,
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
And Mayor Davis.
Okay, we will now move on to staff reports. City managers report on upcoming activities.
Two brief items, Madam Mayor. First one is LunaFest event will be taking place on May 6th. Tickets are still available. New this year is a special VIP experience, which includes a drink ticket or a bottle of wine for a table of 4, commemorative glassware, premium snacks, and early admission at 6 o'clock. General admission tickets are $25 a person, and virtual screening ticket is $20. We want to thank the Brisbane Parks and Recreation Department and the LunaFest Planning Committee for all their work to hold this event in Brisbane again. You can buy tickets at brisbaneca.org/LunaFest. Also, as part of the hashtag We Are Brisbane series, the city's Idea Committee will be hosting an AAPI Heritage Month celebration under the Community Park Gazebo on Saturday, May 20th from 10 a.m. to noon. A call for artists will be going out tomorrow for artists and performers and due back on Monday, May 1st. We will share that in the blasts and other communication means.
Okay, now we have mayor council matters, countywide assignments and subcommittee reports. I believe there were 2 meetings to report out on. One is the Affordable Housing Subcommittee meeting with Councilmember Lentz and I. We met to discuss the renewal of Bridge Housing's lease. They are the organization that manages the Sunrise or the Visitation Garden Apartments. And we talked about how long the wait list is and how they manage that. And we talked about the different types of units. There are units that are moderate units, 80% AMI, I think 60-40. So not everyone is on a list for every unit. There are multiple, seems like there's multiple wait lists because some people will only qualify for certain units. So I think that's why maybe some people appear to be moving up a list, for example, faster than others. It's because some people qualify for units that others don't. But Councilmember Lentz and I asked a lot of questions of staff as they are planning to meet with Bridge. And I believe possibly Bridge may give a presentation at an upcoming council meeting. So we wanted to get some more information based on some of the feedback that we've been receiving and some of the concerns that we've heard in the community. Seems like Bridge may not be interested in renewing their lease, or they're feeling as if the city may need to subsidize them further. So that'll be something that we will need to discuss. Their lease is not up until 2028, but they're wanting to talk about it now. We also talked about possible sites for affordable housing developments, and talked about the 4 million that we have in affordable housing funds and how best to use that. And we also talked about the affordable housing strategic plan. There's going to be, an update from staff on where we are with the housing element at a future meeting. Actually, sorry for clarification. The units are 120% AMI, 80% AMI, 40% AMI, and 30% area median income. So that's the mix of units. And then for median income, 2 units, 40% AMI, 2 units, 80% AMI, 2 units, 120% AMI, 8 units. So anyhow, is there anything else that you want to add to that report?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would. First of all, I just want to, you mentioned that we subsidize Bridge, and do we subsidize them in any means? 'Cause
I think
don't
they're looking for a subsidy. I think they may be looking for a subsidy.
I think Mayor was speaking mostly about prospectively.
First, okay,
Yeah.
because you said further, and I just wanted to clarify
I
that we
think
weren't.
I think the argument that we heard is that they aren't making enough of a profit.
They're
currently.
losing money.
Yeah.
That's what
So it
yeah,
seems like they
so
need, they're
maybe,
wanting some kind of subsidy in the future.
yeah, but maybe Brisbane might not be a place they want to do business in the
Right.
future, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of reading the tea leaves, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we asked was to have an audit, because we've been hearing from folks in the community, about the rise of rents, or the raising of rents, and how long someone's been on the waiting list, and like what criteria has been used. And so, I'm glad we're going to get that information, right? And then we can give it to the public so that everyone knows, what's going down, right? It's better to have something in writing rather than a lot of the talk that's been going around. And then, we also talked about some potential other sites, and I'm looking forward to having Eco Northwest, provide their presentation to all of us, on our affordable housing strategic plan, because we need that information, and it's going to help, with, what our requirement is for our housing element. It's not going to be a part of it, but it is part of the, the stuff that we got to do, right, as a city. So, yeah. So, and just also just like looking at potential revenue, future revenue, right, and having those linkage fees, that's so important. Having a reliable source of funding that goes towards affordable housing, right? We don't have that today. We used to have it with the redevelopment. There you go. Yeah, right, from the Baylands and Sierra Point. And of course, Governor Brown took that away. But thank goodness we were able to hold on to some things, right? We were able to hold on to some of our property and some of the money. And so now we got $4 million, right, in the Affordable Housing Fund that hopefully we can use for building new housing. But, one of the things you brought up, Madison, was, maybe there's some other ways of providing assistance for folks who can live affordably in our community.
Yes. Great. So I believe Cunningham and O'Connell had a fiscal and administrative policies subcommittee. Who wants to report out?
I'll do that. So Councilmember Cunningham and I met with staff regarding the work needing to be done over at the City Hall Annex and how that would be funded. We talked with one of the bond guys who talks about what funding is going to cost us and for how long. And we, basically we extended the lease at a prior meeting, the city council did, to make it where we could borrow for a long period of time to cover the costs associated with making the space usable. And we did get quite a bit of information from the gentleman selling the bonds or processing the bonds possibly for us, and asked him to bring back a couple different scenarios to see if borrowing less, if we had the reserves to cover some of it out of our general fund rather than borrowing the full amount. He and staff are going to come back again to us with a more detailed report on how that would look and what the possibilities would be.
Excellent. Anything to add?
I have 4 that are not on this list.
Oh, so we've updated reporting out. So we're reporting out on meetings that happen between March 31st to April 14th. So if you had a meeting this last week, then that'll be in the report out for next meeting.
Okay, there's one that I really would like to speak about because it is time sensitive.
Okay.
So the rest of them can be reported out without any issues. I'm on the legislative committee and on the board of CCAG, City Council Associated Governments, those who don't like acronyms out there who are watching. And one thing that is very time sensitive right now is the 5 bills that are before the state relative to some changes to the Brown Act. And that goes to committee on Wednesday. There are 5 bills. The legislative committee made a recommendation that we support 4 of those 5 bills. And that was unanimous yes from CCAG. So we are supporting 4 of the 5 bills. The bill that has the most teeth and would be most interesting to the people of San Mateo County is the bill put forward by Assemblywoman Diane Pappen. One of the reasons that we found out there's been so much pushback, negative pushback on changing any of the rules of the Brown Act is from the people who represent rural communities. And from those rural communities, these people are saying, a lot of our residents don't have broadband and they have no internet access to be able to attend meetings virtually. So therefore they want to outright oppose any changes without listening to any possibilities that could come forward. For example, we are going through the library JPA, going to have our first, we're going to do a trial hybrid meeting. I'm going to be here at City Hall, so the general public could come here if they wanted to come. And we're just doing this as a pilot to see if it works. But that could happen all over the state. People could go to either the City Hall or they could go to the library. Problem solved. And so this is a very big deal. And there's a lot of pushback against Assemblywoman Pappen's bill because some of these people are just like, no, our people don't have internet at home. So therefore we don't want to make any changes. So we should keep our fingers crossed that there is some positive movement with this, because we're hypocrites in essence by saying that we're a sustainable community and we're trying to reduce vehicle miles traveled and single occupancy vehicles. But all of a sudden, after having 3 years in COVID, where we successfully spun around with education, we successfully spun around with every meeting we did, and there were no problems, or probably there were a few little problems, but we did work really well under those auspices. And to now suddenly say, y'all jumping back in your cars and driving 4 hours in a single occupancy vehicle to a meeting that doesn't need to happen is hypocrisy. So fingers crossed that, something good will come out of this meeting next week. That's the thing I really wanted to say. That's very important.
So as a side note for everyone, feel free to always report out on any countywide meetings that you attended. But just that schedule for reporting out on subcommittees is just for your city council subcommittees that are City of Brisbane subcommittees.
So I would like to report out on one county meeting.
I want to just comment on what she said. I lent my name to a letter supporting Diane Pappin's bill. The deadline to add your name to that was 4 p.m. this afternoon. Clay and I actually met with her a couple weeks ago or a week or so ago, and we discussed some of these items. I know that there's one from Josh Becker as well. So hopefully there will be some movement on that. I think not just for us, I think we're great with coming in person here, but for countywide meetings, it's incredibly important. And also for commissions and committees who may not be able, all the members may not be able to attend physically. I think that it makes sense for those bodies to be able to still meet virtually. They have a different responsibility to the public than I think we do. So I think that there's bills out that address kind of all of these different scenarios. Anyhow, I'll let you go.
So I'm just going to report out on, I attended, I think, 3 different airport land use, noise, and technical working group meetings for the SFO airport. And I just wanted to report out on the SFO noise roundtable that we are experiencing a lot of extra noise for 2 months while they are doing runway repairs. And the airport is hoping to have those runways back open by the Memorial Day weekend. But until then, Brisbane is getting the brunt of the traffic that is turning to head north or to go south, and sometimes even to go due west. So we are having a lot of noise, and that is due to their runway repairs.
Thank you. Anyone else want to report out on any meetings? Okay,
Madam Mayor,
yes.
just a reminder, I think there was a request by a council member to consider SB 423, writing a letter on SB 423.
Okay,
And that's a housing bill.
whose request is it?
I think Colleen sent it in to you and I.
Okay. Do you want to, oh, yeah. Why don't you talk?
I don't remember, I don't have it in front of me. I don't remember the text of that bill, but I thought it was worthy.
It gives
Clay,
more
do you
teeth
have
to
it?
SB 35, right? It's like-
Yeah, it's
Oh.
the mandatory handling of SB 35 as well as some of the some mandates, I think, from the state on publicly owned property.
Does Tom want to, Tom, do you know?
I'll just add also that the League of Cities is opposing it.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Do you have background on that?
Yes, I don't have it in front of me. Sorry, I tried with there's just something wrong with the internet tonight, the internet connection I have. What it does, though, in a general sense, is as you may recall, there were transit-oriented properties and there were a series of classifications. It wasn't just transit-oriented. And there have been questions about whether or not the previous bill got as far as the author intended and what was discussed in committee. And this is supposed to be cleaning that up and basically putting teeth behind it, as one of you mentioned. So that's what that bill's about. It's going to be interesting whether or not it will get to the governor because, as was referenced, the League of Cities and other local interests are opposing it.
Is this time sensitive or can we agendize maybe under mayor council matters, whether we want to take a formal position on it and send maybe a letter?
I don't have, I don't know, Tom, do you have a sense of whether it's time sensitive?
So there's still, all these bills are in the first house at this point. So you have the entire second house, which is where most change happens, and that'll be plenty of time. So you're all right.
Okay,
Okay,
we'll put it on the next agenda.
great. Okay, so we will go ahead and move to written communications.
Madam Mayor, we received written communication from Rory Wilberg about noise pollution, Mia Christie about letter to City Council, and My Event Sciences regarding their layoff notices.
That brings us to oral communications number 2. Is there a member of the public wishing to speak at this time?
If you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand function. Madam Mayor, I have not received any written communication and I see no raised hands at this time.
Ask a clarification, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Ingrid, we got the layoff notice. Did they send us a copy of a warn notice? Or is this just a heads up letter?
No,
Email?
it's a warrant notice.
Okay,
It's a
thank you.
Okay, so I will now adjourn the meeting at 8:32 p.m. In memory of Anita Caller and recognizing Angel Ibera and Ingrid Padilla for their service to the city.